Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is my co-host and husband, Omar Pozos. How you doing, Omar?
We're going back to the how you doing this time?
Oh, man, I forgot that I was going to give you a different question.
I
know. What is your favorite thing about me?
Ooh. I was telling you this last night. We were having a conversation about this. I think that your ability to truly relate to people and put into words how people are feeling and or experiencing a lot of frustration around like nutrition and health and hormones and gut health and all that stuff. So your ability to relate to people would be my answer.
Wow.
That was pretty good off the top of my head, huh?
I know. That was a good question off the top of my head, but
yeah.
You know, did you want to ask me?
What do you best like about me? Is that what I'm asking?
What is your favorite thing about me?
Yeah, what is your favorite thing about me, Vanessa?
My favorite thing about you, I told you this.
People are going to be like, this is like a love fest with Vanessa and Omar. I'm like, I don't know if I want to listen to this anymore.
Where's the skip 30 seconds ahead button? My favorite thing about you is, I told you this last weekend, not necessarily a favorite thing last weekend, but I told you just that I really appreciate this about you last weekend. I feel like you can get into any room of people and add value and care and show up, and like people just love you. And it's something that's like I'm always very proud of when I'm in a group of people and I can be like, yeah, that's my husband.
Man.
But last week, for those, giving a little context here, last week we had a team retreat with some of our coaches who came out, and I was telling Omar over the weekend, I was kind of giving him a compliment at the fact that he can always come to these kinds of events where it's all women, it's our team of women, and we're talking about like deep things with our feelings, and like, they're talking about like motherhood problems, and we're talking about all these like
perimenopause,
very like feminine things, and he's just like so like, he's such a good listener, and he's deep, and he's like actually really cares, and he's asking really thoughtful questions. And I'm like, how many men would be perfectly happy and content and actually really enjoy being in a room with women for 2 days and being able to still be so in your masculinity, yet care and actually be empathetic and all these things. And I'm like, that's, I think, one of the many things that I love about you.
Oh, well, thank you. I think I was just listening to that podcast you sent me with Ed Milet, and he talks about how sometimes your biggest hardships, your biggest pain is what makes you to be the person that you become, and they become your superpowers. What is it? Like your message. But I think part of it, if I'm being honest, I grew up with, without a dad, and I was a mama's boy basically, where like, I was the oldest, and so I was there to help and support. So I think that has helped me tremendously. But man, I'm gonna have Kyle, our editor, clip this, and I'm gonna put this on repeat.
Replay it every morning.
Exactly. When you're mad at me, I'm like, remember what you said that one day about me?
I'm gonna edit that clip now.
Exactly.
But yeah, we're not here to talk about just all the
incredible things about Omar.
We'll save that for an episode for another day. I wanted to talk about today a topic that I always love to dive deeper into, because this is one that was so transformative in my own health and fitness journey, and that is the conversation around yo-yo dieting. Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know what I'm referring to when I'm talking about yo-yo dieting, what I'm referring to is this repeated pattern of losing weight. And typically the yo-yo that we're referring to, kind of like imagine the visual of a yo-yo, is this bouncing back and forth between losing weight, regaining weight, losing weight, regaining weight. It could also refer to a yo-yo of being on a diet, off a diet, on a diet, off a diet. It's like these streams back and forth. And the result typically of these types of yo-yo dieting patterns, these cycles of often restrictive diets that you're just cutting calories really low, you're making yourself super hungry, you're starving yourself, for lack of better terms. Typically these result in losing weight, yet gaining it back and gaining back even more than you actually lost. And this is the pattern that you will often see, especially with women who have these cycles of yo-yo dieting, which can last for decades, because for some women, this might have started in their teen years, continued into their 20s, 30s, and beyond. And you'll see, if you look at patterns, if you were to graph out their weight over the years, you will see this up and down, yet every time the up and the down gets higher. That baseline down, that baseline up gets higher and higher and higher. And it's a big issue nowadays in how we are developing metabolic resistance as a culture, and the issues that we're seeing with women, especially in these cycles of essentially destroying our metabolisms. So I want to talk about what are some kind of characteristics of yo-yo dieting. So typically, if
is this like, when you mention characteristics, is it like the the things to look for, like the patterns? What do you mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's if you're like, I think I've yo-yo dieted. I think I've maybe yo-yo dieted over the years, but you're like, I don't know. I think I've just lost weight, and it did, those things. Like my favorite is when people will say, "Well, that worked for me. Like I did this diet and it worked for me." And it's like, well, then why are you still here saying that you need to lose weight? Clearly, it didn't actually work. That was a yo-yo dieting cycle, because if you lose the weight but then you gain it back and or you gain back even more, which is what we most likely see here, over time you gain back even more, you end up at a higher weight than you were prior to that diet, you are yo-yo dieting. So let's talk about some of the characteristics here of yo-yo dieting. So big one I already alluded to a little bit, and that is extreme caloric restriction. So a big part of these yo-yo dieting cycles is typically people are in some form or fashion cutting their calories down really low. Typically, they're trying to see weight loss as fast as possible. Oftentimes, it's women who are like, oh, I have this deadline of like, I want to lose weight by, my wedding. I want to lose weight by this trip, by my birthday. And so they crash diet because they put this pressure on themselves that they want to lose a probably large amount of weight by a certain time. In order to do so, they're like, I just want to go hard out the gates. Let me eat as little as I can. And that kind of is the goal for them, is like, let me eat just as little as I can, try and lose weight as quickly as possible. Another aspect of this is rapid weight loss. So typically what we'll see is that you'll lose, and this is like, again, it becomes less and less over time, because we'll talk about that in a minute. But typically in yo-yo dieting cycles, when you're doing these like very restrictive low calorie diets, you typically will see a good bit of weight loss in a short period of time, especially initially. You'll see like big drops in weight. Typically, it's not just body fat. It can be a mix of water weight. It can be a mix of muscle. Of course, it all depends on the process you are using to go about this, because not all calories are created equal. If you're eating a really low protein diet, you're definitely more likely to lose muscle mass, etc. One thing I want to note with this that I think a lot of people don't realize too, another reason that it's so detrimental when you have these really rapid weight loss periods of time is that body fat is actually where toxins are mainly stored. So when you are losing a lot of body fat in a short period of time, your body is actually releasing a lot of stored toxins into the system. So this is where people actually become more toxic when they lose weight quickly. This is why you often see, look at the like the Ozempic culture, where you see these like huge drops in weight really fast, and you can see people look sickly, like they look a little bit more sick in the face. You can often see like their eyes are a little bit more like yellow. Like you can see people typically have signs of a little bit of toxicity in the system. This is a big part of the fact that, especially if they were very overweight, more on even the scale of obese, they have a lot of toxins stored in their body that they're very quickly releasing to their system. This is where a lot of people end up then down the road with bigger health issues as well.
When you said toxic, I was like, what do you mean toxic? They're just a toxic
Britney
person.
Spears level of toxic. But that's where, again, like you can lose weight, yet look more inflamed, look less healthy. That does happen if you lose weight really, really fast.
Do you think part of it too is, because I know a lot of the ladies that we talk to too, they're like, this is why like I'm so fatigued and I'm so brain foggy, and like menstrual cycles get dysregulated again, because it goes from one end to the other so fast too, huh?
Yeah, that can be a big part of it for sure. Another characteristic of yo-yo dieting, that's typically pretty hard to maintain. It's typically something you can only do for a short period of time, because again, this is typically dropping calories really low. You're dropping calories, 1,200 or less, for taller or bigger women, that could be 1,500 or less. Like you're going a much bigger calorie deficit than you actually need to be doing to lose weight. They think, well, if I could lose a pound a week by eating 2,000 calories, then let me eat 1,200 calories and I'm just going to reach my weight loss goal in a month, and that's going to be awesome. That's not how it works. This is what this podcast is about. Yes, you might lose weight fast, especially if it's your first time doing it. It's going to bite you in the butt.
Do you think, because I was just talking to somebody yesterday and literally this conversation came up and she was like, she's like, I know that 1,200 is not very little. This is a former Division I athlete.
She said not very little?
No, she said, I know it's very little. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
She's, and again, like I said, this is somebody that is used to training hard and doing all these things, Division I athlete, hockey player. And so she's like, I know it's very little. She's like, I just don't know what else to do. And I think that's part of where a lot of people are like, Vanessa, like, I want to do things in a way that's healthy and sustainable, but they're like, I just get told that 1,200 is the norm and, I don't know, cardio and incline walks on the treadmill. Like, I think part of it too is just people don't know what else to turn to.
Yeah, exactly. So a big part of it is just like it's really, really hard and they cannot maintain it for very long. So that's why these like rapid approaches and why they swing back in the other direction so quickly is because it's so challenging. They typically find themselves at this place where now they have higher hunger levels. They are feeling just more burnout in the sense when it comes to doing these types of things, and they'll find themselves almost reverting back to worse habits. Think of like, well, I honestly, actually, I'm going to share the next point when I hit this. So when we talk about characteristics of yo-yo dieting, I feel like I keep getting ahead of myself here. A big characteristic of yo-yo dieting as well is the weight regain part of this. So we talked about this a little bit already, but if you have gone through these cycles of dieting, but you end up regaining the weight that you lost, or again, worse, you gain back even more than you lost, then that was not a successful diet. That was a yo-yo diet. So this is like top of mind for me, and part of what even inspired this episode is last weekend I put on the new documentary on Netflix of The Biggest Loser.
How was that? I didn't
get very far into it, to be honest with you. And I honestly kind of want to pick it back up, but it just wasn't like super capturing my attention. But I think I'm just not really like into those types of documentaries and things. But I watched it long enough to get the idea of, that show was such an example of yo-yo dieting extremes. And you would see if anybody's watched the documentary, there were people from the show, The Biggest Loser, that lost these insane amount of weights in short periods of time. And they're like telling the story of how it happened and how they came out of the show. Like they've never been that small before, and their family is so proud of all these things. And it flash forwards to them today, they're even bigger than they were prior to The Biggest Loser. So they gained back the weight and more. This was a very, very common thing. And we see this not just with these extreme weight loss shows, but with everyday women doing these types of diets where, they lose the weight, they, lose 20, gain back 30. Like that's the cycle when we get caught up in.
Yeah. And then it gets repetitive where you're like, well, it worked, last year. So now here I am, I'm going to try it again.
And that's exactly it. So that would be my last characteristic of yo-yo dieting here in terms of like helping you spot, are you yo-yo dieting? Have you yo-yo dieted in the past? It's the cycle repetition. So again, it's typically this pattern where you go into a diet, you lose weight, you come out of the diet, you gain the weight back. But I want you to really understand this fully. Every time you lose weight, it gets harder and harder. So the amount of weight you lose, or like the lowest weight that you reach, is like you end up at a higher weight than you would have in the past. You lose less weight than you would have before. You can even push yourself harder. You can starve yourself more. You can do more cardio. You can, try and burn more calories. You can do these things, and maybe it gets you to get more of the weight off. But what happens is you end up always back where you started. Your body always kind of swings back right where you left off, essentially. But the thing is, we always end up blaming it on age. I see this all the time where women will be in these cycles year after year, lose weight, gain it back. And each year their average weight gets higher and higher year over year. And what do? They blame it on age, but they are not taking into account the patterns that they've been in, these cycles of yo-yo dieting, and how it has crashed their metabolism.
Yeah. And I want to challenge the listeners a little bit too, babe, because if you're listening to this, if you're resonating with what Vanessa's saying, if you're like, hey, that's me, I'm the person that's done the extreme restrictions, I've done the rapid weight loss, I'm doing all these things, well, and this is going to be a bit of a harsh reality, but think of it like this. What's the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, right? And I'm like, well, if nothing changes, nothing is going to change. And the problem is we do get a little bit older. Your body does start to wear a little bit more every single day. And so it does become increasingly harder. So sure, we can blame age, we can blame perimenopause, we can blame all these things, but I don't think, or people are like, I'm just not disciplined enough, or I just don't have the motivation. I'm like, I don't think it's the discipline or the motivation. I'm like, it's just that we're trying to fit what is it, like a square into a circular hole or whatever the saying is. But I think it starts with you just being honest with yourself and be like, okay, I need to do something different because obviously what I've done in the past just doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that then. Why does yo-yo dieting not work? So we talked about the characteristics of yo-yo dieting. So by now you should understand what yo-yo dieting is if you've been in that pattern, or maybe you know people who have been in that pattern before. I know I was. This was a big part of my early 20s. College, I was really in the yo-yo dieting cycle. Coming out of college.
Was college Vanessa crazy?
I guess it depends on how you define crazy.
Party animal crazy.
I had like a good semester or two of party animal, but you have to remember like being in college athletics, there's not a whole lot of partying you actually can do because it's like most of the time you have early morning practices,
Fair.
You are traveling on weekends. So it's like my version of partying was like when we had weeks where we didn't have practice and meets and all the things, then it was like, woo, let's go out on a Friday, Saturday. So like that was my version of partying.
Man,
I think your version of college partying was a little different.
Yeah, I could say that. We did some partying back in the day.
So what are kind of the impacts of yo-yo dieting, right? I saw this, again, coming out of early 20s, I got to this point where it just felt like weight loss was impossible. I even went, at a certain point, I got really into running, and I was working in an ad agency at the time, and our agency was based out of Oregon. So like this big group from the agency decided to run one of those Ragnar races. So it's like a team race over the course of overnight, to where you're doing multiple shifts of running. You know, I'm running like 5 miles at 6 p.m. and then like another 3 miles at 3 a.m., like camping in the woods. Like I was really into running for that period of time. Guess what? I did not look lean and fit and healthy. I could not lose weight no matter what I did. I was trying all the things. I was cutting calories. I was trying all these different like extreme diets. I got into like the faster way to fat loss train at one point. That didn't work for me. Like I tried so many things, and this is me in my early 20s when you would think that your metabolism should be at its fastest. Why was mine not its fastest? Because I had been in these cycles of yo-yo dieting year after year. I had trained my metabolism to slow down, and that is the biggest thing. So when you go through these cycles of yo-yo dieting, you are slowing your metabolism down. These repeated weight loss and weight regain cycles are essentially causing your metabolic rate to get lower, meaning the amount of calories that you burn just in your normal, like not necessarily adding in exercise or things like that, just your baseline calorie burn gets less and less and less because your body wants to take care of itself. Your body doesn't want to lose body fat forever. Your body wants to store body fat as this safety mechanism. So if you keep doing these crash diets, what is it going to do? Every time you yo-yo out of the diet, you go back to eating, normal. You probably go back to eating a lot. Your body is going to conserve. It's just going to like soak it up like a sponge. And it's going to be like, okay, we got to store as much body fat as we can for that next round of yo-yo dieting for when it comes. Make it even harder. That's the problem. Another big part of this and why we see our metabolism slow down is we often lose muscle. I alluded to this earlier. Of course, like the way that you go about this can affect whether you lose muscle and how much muscle you lose. But if you are eating low calories, you're also cutting protein down. If you are also doing a lot of cardio, you are going to cause your body to burn through muscle, because especially most of the time you'll see when people are yo-yo dieting, they tend to cut carbs. Your body needs carbs. So what's it going to do? It's going to start breaking down muscle protein to actually take that stored glucose and use that as carbohydrate energy in the body. So now you have yourself actually losing muscle. So you might be like, yeah, my clothes are getting, fitting better. I'm getting smaller. But what you don't see is that you're actually losing this precious lean muscle mass. This is a huge problem, especially for women. Sarcopenia is one of the biggest ways that women actually, like in older age, end up with really, really bad issues, is because they've been losing muscle over time. And it's going to happen naturally as we age either way. You're just forcing it to happen faster through these cycles of yo-yo dieting.
Yeah. Wait, what's sarcopenia? I've never heard that.
Yeah, sarcopenia, that's actually more so just referring to losing muscle over time, but you are going to speed it up if you are doing these yo-yo diets where you are, why are you smiling like that?
I can't stop thinking about sarcopenia. All right, sorry, go ahead. All right, we're good.
So sarcopenia, however you pronounce it, it's essentially the loss of muscle over time. It's going to happen either way as you get older, especially as women. We're more prone to it, but you can speed it up based on if you are eating low protein, you are not strength training, but strength training is muscle protective, not just muscle building. There's a lot of ways that we end up losing muscle over time. And when we lose muscle, there's a host of health issues that come over time. And it's a big reason why women in older age, like you can see a huge difference between women who have strength trained in their 70s and 80s versus women who don't. Like it looks like a drastic age difference, even though they're same age. That's the difference of muscle.
I mean, look at your dad specifically. Your dad has kept such great like muscle mass even at his age too. But just a quick behind the curtain for you guys. Vanessa and I were looking up, is it sarcopenia, penia? And I just could not stop laughing because I was like, oh, sarcopenia. But
he was like, I don't think you're pronouncing it right. So I was like, we're going to Google real quick. I'm like, pause the episode. Anyway, so muscle loss, big part of why the metabolism tends to slow down now is if we're losing muscle. Muscle is, I always say, like metabolic machinery. Muscle is burning calories. Muscle is keeping your metabolism fast. So as we lose muscle from yo-yo dieting, you're also causing your metabolism to slow down over time. The next thing, and this is one that I think is not talked about enough, and this is a huge problem that I see with women who have been on and off diets for many, many years, and that is leptin resistance. So leptin and let's clarify both leptin and ghrelin. So leptin is your satiety hormone, and ghrelin is your hunger hormone. So the very simplified way of saying, basically, it's like this cycle back and forth of when your body wants to make sure that you're getting enough food in. So like if your stomach is empty, it's going to send the signal to your brain to release ghrelin, and that's where you actually feel these sensations of hunger. You feel the desire to eat. Leptin is the opposite. When you have a good filling meal, when you've had sufficient food, your stomach is going to send the signal to your brain. Your gut's going to, that gut-brain axis is working. Your brain is going to pick up on that, okay, we're full, we're satisfied, we don't need to eat anymore. How many women are in that place where they're like, I just feel hungry all the time. I never feel full. Like I never feel satisfied. I only know when to stop eating based on, if I've hit my calories for the day. That is classic leptin resistance. You do not actually feel leptin anymore. And a huge part of this are these cycles of yo-yo dieting, these cycles of crash dieting, where your body essentially every time you lose weight, leptin drops, and then you regain the weight, leptin rises again, and everything just gets like super out of whack because you get these big spikes and drops in leptin to where your body can't read the signal anymore. It's kind of like if you, let's say you are setting your thermostat. Let's say you and your husband like it to be different temperatures in the house. And so one goes and like cranks it really low, and then the other one goes and cranks it really high. If you did that back and forth all day long, you're just gonna end up breaking the system, right? That's kind of what's happening. You're sending your body just back and forth super strong between the two. You're not having a good, like easy spike and drop. You're having these huge spikes and drops between these cycles of yo-yo dieting. And that's where your body becomes resistant to it. That's where we especially see people struggle after these diets with being able to eat normal amounts of food. They go in like binges. They end up in really unhealthy relationships with food. They tend to like really overeat. It's a big part of leptin resistance too.
And another thing too, if you think about it, so this is for a person that has no other underlying issues. Like you're already setting that thermostat up and down and your body's totally dysregulated. Your hunger cues are totally off whack. Now add a stressful, environment, or add lack of sleep, add hormonal imbalances, birth control, PCOS, add GI issues, and now your body's like, what in the hell is going on? The last thing it's going to do is help people lose weight.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another big problem with these cycles of yo-yo dieting, and so when you have these big crashes of losing weight and regaining weight, we talked about this a little bit already with the muscle loss. Typically, when you're having rapid weight loss, you are losing a higher proportion of muscle than you would if you were going at a better, more steady pace of weight loss. So when we are in the diet, we're in the crash, we are losing muscle. Now we come out of the diet. And again, these are typically women coming out of diet, just going like, woo, I'm done dieting. Let me have all the things. Like they go a little bit crazy. They go, like they're feeling like completely unsatisfied. They eat all the things, they overeat. Well, what's going to happen? They actually have a higher propensity of gaining body fat as opposed to muscle during those times. So what's happening is when you're in the crash, when you're in the diet, you're actually losing muscle. Then you come out of the diet with less muscle, less body fat too, but less muscle. You come out of the diet, now you gain body fat, you don't really gain back muscle. This is a big part of now we do this cycle over and over again, and what's going to happen? Over time, you have less and less and less muscle, and you're adding more fat cells, because every time you reach that new like height in your weight of more body fat than you've had in the past, when you come out of these diets and out of these extremes, you actually are forming new fat cells. And it's actually a lot easier to gain back weight when you have more fat cells than it is if you are like just kind of refilling the same fat cells that already exist, just shrinking them. The last thing I want to talk about here is the mental health side of this. So I think a lot of people can resonate with this. A lot of people can understand this, but I see so much disordered eating coming out of yo-yo diets. I have been there myself. I struggled with disordered eating in my early 20s. This was why I was doing these cycles of yo-yo dieting. I started to become afraid of fat gain. I started to become afraid of food. I thought food was the enemy. I thought dieting and calorie counting was the enemy. Like I thought all these things were so bad, because time over time, I got more fearful of food. I felt more out of control with food. I never felt satisfied with food anymore. I just felt like I had zero control. I felt like food ran my life. And it took years and years of unwinding this, of unwinding the mental side of it, unwinding the functional health side of it, getting my body resensitive to leptin again, to where now I can feel satisfied eating, good normal amounts of food, getting to that place on both a physical and mental level. It is really hard to do. And it's so sad when I will have women in their, postmenopausal years that have these disordered eating, like really bad mental health around food because of these years of yo-yo dieting that they've been in. So if you want to break the cycle, if you've been in the cycle in the past, maybe you're in the cycle right now, girl, I feel you. I've been there. Like, I want you to understand you can get out of this. I have come out of it. Many, many, many of our clients have come out of this. It is way more common than you think. You are not the only one struggling with this. Now, if you want to break the cycle of yo-yo dieting, of course, first step with anything is awareness. That's why I wanted to talk about the characteristics of yo-yo dieting, help you understand and not fall into those tempting patterns of like, but I'll just do one more crash diet because I just want to lose some weight for this like one event and then I'm going to do it the healthy way. No, you have to stop the crash diets now. So what do you need to do? You need to focus on sustainability. You need to focus on lifestyle change. If you're trying to do things that you realistically could not do long term, like you have your body screaming at you in a sense of like, I need food, I'm so hungry, I'm so restricted, that is not healthy. That is not something you can do for a long period of time. You need to nourish your body with good food. For a lot of women, they're going to have to spend time eating at their maintenance calories, at the amount of calories that at their current body weight, they should be able to maintain body weight on. They need to eat at or about that many calories for an extended period of time before leptin kicks back in, before their body feels safe again, before their body can actually start to re-regulate and heal from the inside out. For me, I had to eat at maintenance for over a year before I could even start to even play with trying to cut calories again. Like, it took a long time of resetting this for me. It might not take you that long. I have a client, Kayla, who just posted on Instagram yesterday talking about how, when she came into Vital Spark in April, she was at the highest weight she'd ever been at. And being in her 30s, it's like something where she's been on these yo-yo dieting cycles for a long time. And she found herself at her highest weight that she's been in many, many years, or I think maybe ever. And she posted on Instagram, I just reposted it, but she had shared that she's now, I think, 14 pounds down since then.
14? Is she really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And this has been a focus on eating more food and on actually getting her body to feel safe again. And so for some people, they'd be like, wow, 14 pounds in, 4 months, like that sounds kind of slow. Like, I want to lose 14 pounds in a month. Well, guess what? If you have had years of yo-yo dieting cycle, that's actually really fast to lose 14 pounds in 4 months. It's actually incredible to do that. That shows that she has been doing the work to make her body feel safe. And she has been doing that by eating more food, by focusing on stress management, by focusing on her mental health around food, focusing on her relationship with food, by focusing on her quality of food, eating a lot more nutrient-dense whole foods, less of the more convenient foods that are a little bit more processed and things like that she was relying on before. She's really focusing on whole food diets, drinking more water, doing the things that are what some would consider basics. but she has been ruthlessly perfecting the basics, not being, obsessed with getting into like the flashy, supplement protocols and things like that. She's like, she knows she has a lot of hormone imbalances going on. We've looked at her Dutch test. We know there's a lot there, but we know in order to get into balancing our hormones, we have to make sure her metabolism is in a good spot and we're fueling her metabolism. So I share that with you guys as an example of, you could be like Kayla, who was, eating less than 1,300 calories. Like that was like the most she would eat per day was 1,300 calories. She was doing that for a long time there and going through these cycles of then suddenly like be overeating at times. She is now just eating good, consistent amounts of good amount of calories. And guess what? Her body is responding. That can be you. You just have to trust the process. You have to give your body the time it needs to feel safe again. It takes time. But you absolutely can get there. Your body will respond. Good, just nutrition, good focusing on eating enough through, reverse dieting practices, eating in maintenance phases. Like these things are so important and they are so overlooked. So, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I always ask this. We don't ask for a lot on this podcast, you guys, but if this episode resonated with you, please share it. Please send it to a friend. Please go on Apple or Spotify, whatever your preferred streaming platform is. Give us a review. A 5-star review is great. Anything else, not so great. But anyways, yeah, please help us push the algorithm. Help us, give us feedback. Rate the podcast so that we can continue to help and continue to spread more information out there. Because I know that if this resonated with you, there's a ton of other people out there that are also frustrated and stuck and could help. Or we could help give them a little bit more clarity when it comes to stuff like this. So that's my ask for today. And I don't ask for a lot, but please give us a 5-star rating.
Whatever you think we deserve. That's
5
what I ask
stars.
for. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another great episode.
Bye, everybody.